So it's that time of year where people give their projections and strategies moving into the new year. And that's what I intend on doing in this video. So the layout is as following. We're going to see what the general market predictions are moving into 2022, and that's going to be by big names like BlackRock and JP Morgan. We're going to see what they think the market's going to be like. In addition, I'm also going to be showing you guys where I personally see value in the market right now. After that, I'm going to share my reasoning and entire strategy and game plan moving into 2022. And then finally, we're going to be looking into the fund flow data for various ETFs to see where other investors are currently putting their money. And if you guys enjoy the video, as always, leave it a like. It helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm, and it's greatly appreciated. So stock market predictions 2022 S&P 500. According to FactSet, industry analysts have made some stock market projections forecasting that the S&P 500 will see a price increase of 14.8%, very specific, over the next 12 months. When you drill down by sector, the stock market outlook appears quite favorable for the communication industry, which is forecasted to enjoy 18% increases. Expert stock market analysts forecast that the financial industry will see the smallest increase of 7.8%. Now keep in mind, as they say down here, that this is just a projection and most likely it's completely wrong, but I do think it's a pretty valuable data point to consider what other people are projecting over the following year. And visually, this is what it looks like on a graph for the S&P 500. Now this table right here shows the financial institution and their S&P 500 target by the end of 2022. And for reference, the S&P 500 is currently trading on a price of 4,577. So Morgan Stanley is the most bearish, and they're predicting that by the end of 2022, it's actually going to be lower than it is right now. Then we have other names like Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs that give us a moderate price appreciation by the end of 2022. And finally, Bank of America has the S&P 500 1 year from now essentially having the same price. And this is what Morgan Stanley, the most bearish out of these, had to say on the topic. So while earnings for the overall index remains durable, there will be greater dispersion of winners and losers, and growth rates will slow materially. 2022 will be more about stocks than sectors or styles in our view. So that's what the experts think on the topic when it comes to the S&P 500. And keep in mind, the predictions 1 year ago for 2021 were definitely not 24%. So take everything they say with a huge grain of salt. Now, when it comes to my stance on the market and where I see value, I definitely see it represented by the ARK Innovation ETF. So we all know in 2020, this ETF was a rocket ship, and I believe it was the best performing ETF of the year. But since then, in 2021, the ETF year to date is down over 20%. And during that same time, the general market went up 24%. So I have to say, back in 2020, this ETF was definitely overvalued. In hindsight, now that's very apparent. But the past 1 year, this ETF has been doing nothing but consolidating and becoming cheaper. If we do some quick and basic technical analysis on the chart, we can see that especially over the past couple days where the ETF sold off even more, it is well below all of its moving averages. And this price action is basically the exact opposite of where this ETF was 1 year ago, where the price action was well above the moving averages. Now, of course, in it of itself, this doesn't mean anything. The point that I'm trying to make is that these innovative tech names, since 2020 when they had their major rally, have since cooled off, and a lot of the momentum has left them, leaving them a lot cheaper now than they were just 1 year ago, and that could potentially make some opportunities going into 2022. But by far, my biggest bet and strategy moving into 2022 is around crypto, and more specifically, Bitcoin. Now, I know Bitcoin and crypto is a very divisive topic, but I see immense value in the space, and I think 10 years in the future, crypto is going to be a huge part of the financial industry. And when it comes to the price action, lots of people are predicting that Bitcoin by the end of the year is going to reach $100,000 per coin, but I do not think that's going to happen. I do think that eventually, of course, Bitcoin is going to be well over $100,000, but I think it's going to happen more later in 2022. I think in the short term, there's two possible scenarios, and both of them I see a price decline happening. The more bullish scenario is that it bounces off of the $50,000 range and then moves higher from there. But it's very possible that there's no big news in the space and momentum kind of dries up, and in that case, I can definitely see the market falling quite substantially back to where it was in May. Now, long term, I actually think this is a positive thing, and it creates a great buying opportunity. Bitcoin at 30,000 would be magnificent. But regardless of what happens, I definitely think by mid and late 2022, Bitcoin is going to be back at all-time highs. And this situation could be an amazing trading opportunity. When we look at the data science models for Bitcoin, Bitcoin tends to have these waves of rallies, and currently, I'm just not convinced we're anywhere near the peak. Every model I see indicates that we're somewhere in the middle of this rally. And that's why I think even if Bitcoin does have a substantial pullback, we're still set to reach new all-time highs within the next year. Alright, but enough of what I think. Let's see where money is actually flowing in the stock market right now. And to do this, we're going to use ETF Database. This is one of my absolute favorite tools to use. So right here, you're looking at the different categories of ETFs. So we have buy right ETFs, we have low volatility, dividend, high momentum, and if we click into one of these sectors, this is the aggressive growth ETF list. We can see the most popular names, but there's also different filters, and one of them is fund flows. And I think this is super insightful because predictions are one thing, but seeing where people are actually investing their money is a completely different animal. And when it comes to this list of aggressive growth ETFs, over the past 4 weeks, these are the biggest winners when it comes to net fund flows. So the number one on this list is QQQ. That's no surprise because it's the biggest, most popular name. But the second one is pretty surprising to me. This is a consumer discretionary ETF. Then below that, we have a very popular standard S&P 500 growth ETF. Below that, we have semiconductors. And then finally, IGV, which is an expanded tech software ETF. So these are the high growth funds that over the past 4 weeks, people have been buying the most of. And this is the inverse. So over the past 4 weeks, these are the funds that have been losing the most funds. We have a Russell 1000 growth ETF, we have a momentum ETF, as well as VGT, which is Vanguard Information Technology ETF, which happens to be one of my absolute favorite ETFs. But the biggest shock to me was that the Consumer Discretionary Select Sector ETF was one of the biggest gainers. And I guess that does make sense because over the past 1 year, it has outpaced the general market. And this is just generally a sign that in 2022, investors think that consumer discretionary might be a well-performing sector. The next category of ETFs I want to look at is traditional dividend ETFs. Again, let's do the same filter, so let's go by fund flows and filter by the past 4 weeks. So we have SCHD at the top here. This is an ETF that I talk about a lot on this channel. In my opinion, this is one of the highest quality dividend ETFs on the entire market, and it seems like other people agree because it has the highest net flows over the past 4 months. Below that, we have VIG, which is the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF, and to be honest, I am confused when it comes to this ETF. It does have Vanguard behind it, which is one of the best names in the space, but when looking at the dividend characteristics of this fund, I'm just not that impressed, and DGRO, in my opinion, is a better product. But regardless, when it comes to where people are putting the money, VIG is outperforming. And again, if we do the inverse, we can see the biggest losers. The first thing to note here is that the top 3 losing ETFs are from the same company, WisdomTree. The first one is the International Small Cap Dividend Fund. The second biggest loser is International again, but this is the Hedged Quality Dividend Growth Fund. And finally, DGRW, WisdomTree US Quality Dividend Growth Fund. And I've done a lot of research into this ETF, and in my opinion, this is actually a quality dividend growth ETF, but I think the issue is, if we filter by the biggest winners again, DGRO by iShares is a very similar product, but I think because it's made and marketed by BlackRock, it's simply overtaking the market and is beating out DGRW. And the final sector I want to look at are high momentum ETFs, because this is going to be a great indication of where momentum is in the market going into 2022. So the first name on this list is the S&P 500 Small Cap Value with Momentum ETF. And right below that, we have another Small Cap Momentum ETF. So this could be an indication that moving into 2022, people are preferring small cap names. And if we look at the inverse, the biggest loser is actually the most popular name, which is MTUM, which is by iShares, and it's a general momentum ETF. And that's followed by PTH, which is a healthcare sector ETF. So there you have it, guys. Those are the major predictions for the market moving into the new year. Along with the predictions, we saw where the actual funds are flowing between different ETFs at the current moment, as well as where I currently see value in the market, and my prediction for the crypto market, and where I think it's going to be by the end of 2022. So if you guys enjoyed and you're still watching, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot, and it's greatly appreciated. But regardless, I'll see you guys in the next one.